This is Kumar.
This is Ryan.
And this is Deconstructing Comics. Welcome to Deconstructing Comics. I'm speaking with Ryan Cecil Smith. It's been a long time. Now relocated to LA, no longer in Osaka. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about the just released a couple of weeks ago Leiji Matsumoto's Queen Emeraldas from Kodansha Comics. It was originally 4 volumes in Japan, and Kodansha is releasing it in 2 hardcovers. And we kind of talked about Emeraldas before, of course, because when you started out, I don't know how we should get around to this, but I'm wondering how people know Matsumoto's work, if they know it at all. So I think a certain generation would know Star Blazers.
Yep.
And then maybe some people, especially in Europe, would know Captain Harlock.
Yeah, I think people like Europeans or people who are into comics over there would be more likely to know him. But until recently, I mean, there was almost nothing from him in English. There was something in the manga book. Is that right?
Yeah, manga. There was one of his war comics in there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a little bit atypical, but yeah. That's right.
Yeah, it's good, but it's not like most of his stuff is this sci-fi stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that they put something different out there. And then someone published a couple volumes of like the new series of 999 of Galactic Express 999, which is like his most famous series.
Yeah.
It's about a Galactic Express train that travels through the universe, and they have adventures on it. And the one that they... do you remember who published that?
It was Viz, and they serialized it in An America magazine, and then they put it out in 5 volumes. But it's actually the sequel series. It's not the original Galaxy Express. Right. So if you don't know it, it's kind of... it's a little bit like what's going on.
I can't recommend it, honestly. Yeah. I had the first volume, and I was familiar with the stuff, but I hadn't read a lot of it. But when I read that book, I was like, it was just very strange. So I can't really recommend that.
Yeah, I also can't recommend it for another reason, which is if you get to the end of the first Galaxy Express, and I don't know about the comics, I can't remember how many volumes there were, like maybe 20. But even if you watch the movie version, which was my first Matsumoto exposure way back when I was like 10 years old or something.
Cool.
The ending of that first Galaxy Express movie is so perfect and so heartbreaking, and it's like Tetsuro and Maytel are never going to see each other again. That's it. Like, that's life. It's that relationship. That's the end. And for there to be a second one with them both on the cover together, it's like, what? It already violated everything that was great about the ending of the first one. But yeah, and I think it's hard. This plot's although it kind of picks up the same, let's go from planet to planet and have an adventure each time, the plot does depend a little bit on knowing the first one, which hasn't been released in English, which is weird, except for the movie. And I think recently the whole 113 episode series was streaming on some network. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I wish I knew about that. That's cool.
Yeah, but the thing I was kind of getting to was I think there might be a certain percentage of people that only previously know Matsumoto through your fanzine version.
Yeah, maybe. I hope so. What that was, I don't remember what year I made that in, maybe 2012 or so, or 2011, I don't know. But a few years ago, basically I wanted to make I had a bunch of reasons for doing this, but basically a friend and I translated a big, we translated like a 25-page chunk, and my friend did most of the work translating, but I hand drew like 25 pages So this is my way of being. I guess I kind of wanted to like draw from a master kind of thing, and then we would translate it and just publish it. But it was so good. And it was the thing we're talking about today. We picked a section of Matsumoto's work from this kind of small sub-series from a sub-series, Queen Emeraldas, because she's like a character inside the better-known Captain Harlock. And maybe incorrectly, I think of Captain Harlock as like a sub character from 999,
Yes.
the most popular thing. But he's very, I think his series is just well known on its own. But so we picked this, this small book and to like publish a section of, and we printed like 300 copies of this zine. But the 25 pages were so good that we instead we went to like 100 pages.
Yeah.
and we made this 100-page series of 3 zines where I drew the pages instead of like photocopying them. I drew them, and then we mostly my friend translated it, and we published it this way, and it was so good. I mean, I was just amazed at like how compelling the story was,
Yeah.
and how strong the characters were. And I felt like the section that we worked on, it was like meaningful. So it was so cool, and it was cool to make this thing. I had never heard of him before finding his work in Japan, and I wanted to share with people and say like, this is awesome. And the way the way these comics work, the way Queen Emeraldas works, and a lot of his comics, they're written with this really weird pacing. I mean, like specifically, like there's so many like double page spreads of just like ships flying through space.
Yeah.
Right. And then there'll be like really compressed pages with like 9 horizontal panels.
Yeah.
It's so fun, and it's Looney Tunes. It's great.
I was actually thinking about that, specifically reading this. I was actually amazed by the pacing of the panel formatting. I thought it was, because sometimes you get a full page and then a double page and then another full page before you get back to broken up again. And I don't know if it was because his editor was like, you need to do 20 pages this month, and he was like, okay, I'm going to expand this panel and this panel into full pages, or what. But I found it was absolutely impeccably timed. I found it was really
totally
perfect. Like, oh, they're going to cross the desert, and suddenly get 4 silent pages of them crossing the desert on this, sail barge or whatever. I thought it was astonishing, really perfectly timed, and I love those crammed pages where it's often just before somebody's about to get vaporized.
Yeah.
or they're being taught a very important moral lesson about what it means to be a man in outer space. It really, there's a very deliberate building of tension. I don't know, he was well into his career at this stage, but there's such a there's a kind of natural flow to it. It just seems so unforced.
Totally. Yeah.
And I don't know, when I came into it, I kind of was expecting it to be very similar to Galaxy Express 999. Because you've got he's almost created his own archetype. So there's a willowy woman, a beautiful woman. In this case, it's Emeraldas. In that case, it was Maytel. You've got a young boy. In that case, it was 10-year-old Tetsuro. Here, it's Hoshino. So you think, oh, okay, so my guess was, okay, they're going to hook up. And this is also from reading your zine. Okay, she's going to hook up with him somehow, and they're going to travel together through space and have adventures. No, that's not what happens. It's quite different. I was really surprised by that. And it's more... Toshiro has to learn hard lessons.
Hiroshi Umino.
Umino, right. He has to learn the hard lessons fast, and he becomes quite calloused. I don't know if callous is the word, but early on he becomes hard. Whereas Tetsuro is constant. Every planet they come to, he's kind of shocked by the behavior of people there, and he never really gets over how he's chirpy and optimistic, and he's looking forward to getting his cyborg body at the end of the journey. But every time they come to this planet, and he finds that the rich people are oppressing the poor people, or the yellow people are oppressing the blue people, he comes away totally depressed by it, and he's amazed that, people act this way or whatever.
He was always in 999. The little boy character is always like wide-eyed.
Yes.
And learning these like profound truths and being impressed and just surprised by them. And and this one, this character, I mean, his life is terrible, and he is just constantly. But I love that about this book. I love that about this character, that he is someone, I like this book because the kind of message is so strong, and it speaks to you very directly. And it's like, you think your life is hard, and he pushes so hard to say, like, this kid has the worst life. The worst stuff happens to him.
Yeah.
He doesn't spare this kid at all. So it kind of makes you, and I think it's convincingly written, like, the character reacts to that truth about his life in a way that seems genuine.
Sure.
It's impressive how hard he tries, but like, I think like one of the first scenes is like he cries. I think it's like the first scene where he meets Emeraldas, and she's like, men don't cry.
A man does not cry. It's the very first thing she ever says to him. A man does not cry.
Yeah. And that's actually like the toughest, hardest interaction, kinda, because he just like shoots back at her. He's like, my parents died in front of me. I didn't cry. I lost it. All these things happened to me. I didn't cry, but this ship was everything. This was, I put all my work in. This is my only way out. I am done. And it was like, it was just like convincingly written, like, oh man, this kid has it tough and terrible. And then just the lessons keep coming, and the hard stuff keeps coming.
Yeah. And then he ends up on this ship. He's kind of bought his way onto the ship, but
Oh, that was great.
So the captain, or somebody has offered to. He tried to get on the ship. The captain said, no way unless you can pay. Then one of the other people on the ship said, I'll pay for the kid for the sake of his pride as a man.
Yeah.
So he's allowed on the ship, but he's not guaranteed safe passage. And as soon as they're airborne, the captain's like, well, we got to jettison some weight, so you're out of here. They have a bit of a fight. He manages to knock out the captain, disarm him, basically. And then there's
someone else disarms him.
Right,
he doesn't even really do it.
Right. Then there's another altercation, and then the captain comes back with no gun, and he's like, we need to have our duel or whatever, and Umino shoots him in cold blood, unarmed.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's very early. It's like in the page, look at page like 67, 68, 69, he shoots this guy, unarmed captain, dead. He says, it's a disgrace. I'll carry the rest of my life, but I'm here. I survived. There was no other way out of it. In a fair fight, you would have killed me.
Yeah, and I love that comes right after he had like talked to I'm calling her by a different name. He just talked to Emeraldas, and she said to him in this line that was a little hard, like, I mean, it's like hard to receive this message. She tells him something like, look, you're a kid. Like, you just got to survive. Like, don't worry about honor.
Mm.
Don't worry about what people think of you. Like, your number one job as a kid is just survive.
Right.
And so, it's amazing. Then, like, suddenly he kills this unarmed guy. And it's like totally like that is a low thing to do.
Mm.
And he personally feels wrecked, but you feel like, I mean, it's true. He would have gotten killed. I mean, he barely made it through there. I think the message sticks. It feels genuine.
Yeah. And then it has a kind of odd format, because sometimes we get stories about Emeraldas or her past.
Right.
And then we get back to Umino. So she's had a kind of super hard. She's on a mission she's looking for someone.
Yeah.
And she won't say what it is. We invent she's out in space for some reason. First we don't know the reason. Then we learn she's looking for someone, not him. We don't know the reason. By the end of this volume, we still don't know. I'm kind of glad we decided. Like, I emailed you and said, do you want to talk about Queen Emeraldas, and do you want to wait for the second volume? You said, let's do it. So I'm kind of glad we're here and we didn't wait 6 months or a year for volume 2 to come out. But at this stage, it's still a mystery what exactly she's looking for. But we get a bit of her origin. She lands on this planet, this ship, which is coincidentally called Queen Emeraldas, which is the same as her name, is given to her on this random planet that she landed on. I guess it's just destiny or something. I don't know.
Yeah. That's the kind of like weird thing that like, is there a writing term for that? Like hanging a lantern on it? They're just like, I don't know. It's just like, yeah, it's just a coincidence. What do you want? You know? Okay.
Yeah. But then she comes back later on, well into her pirating career, and she has a notorious reputation as this murderous, ruthless pirate.
Yeah.
And she comes back to this planet and gets revenge. And this planet was occupied by this group called the 100. Like they found this abandoned planet with these really futuristic, amazing buildings, but there's only 100 people living there. Anyone else that shows up is a slave. And that's kind of a typical Galaxy Express kind of thing where there's this extreme discrimination of one group against another or whatever.
Yeah.
But she comes back and she doesn't even get she finds that all these people who have been deemed ugly have been sent out into the... Am I mixing these stories up? No, that's right. They've been sent out into the desert, and she's looking for this person there. And
I think she was looking for Hiroshi in that one.
Oh, was she? Okay.
I think she was there looking to see if Hiroshi had been like... But hey, I might be wrong. I think near the end of the book, I was getting the feeling that maybe Hiroshi is the person she's looking for, even though she's already found him. It's this. You can tell this is like a 400-page hardcover collection of a serial story. So you can feel the serialization.
Right.
You can feel how like he's like putting in more details about this mystery, like with each bit.
Yes.
Near the end, that's what I thought was going on, but it's I really like that about this, that the 100 thing and like the discrimination stuff, like the way everything is like this, this metaphor for our society and our culture. And I read each of these stories, like and I think like, I wonder like, what is he mapping that onto in the literal world? And also like, what do I like as a reader, like, how do I map that, into my experience? I mean, aside from like broadly like discrimination.
Yeah.
But he does this great job of like going at these ideas from an unexpected, going at these very basic themes about how, kind of moral themes. Because these examples he's using in these stories are so bizarre, like the 100 was like, it was like 100 people came on a spaceship to this planet, found a whole planet full, or a city that was abandoned, like a metropolitan city that was just totally abandoned. So 100 people live there, and everybody else who comes by, they make them serve as slaves. Like, how absurd, right?
Yeah.
There's all these buildings and only 100 people are free there. Like, that's crazy. So it's like this big empty city. It doesn't make any sense, right? But still, I don't read the story and I'm like, oh, that's impossible. This is dumb. It's the way he writes it is like, you're like, oh man, I don't know it. I don't know what I'm connecting to there, but
I think I know what you're saying, but I do think it is kind of a broad. I don't know if he's mapping it onto something specific, because, I mean,
right.
It's kind of a thing in Galaxy Express where it just repeats. That theme comes back over and over again. And last time we talked, we kind of mentioned how there's a kind of naive quality to Matsumoto's work, and that's part of the appeal. And maybe part of the reason that he kind of went out of fashion in the 80s in Japan, and maybe now he's kind of coming up again, and kind of people are rediscovering him. But I think I think that's something kind of appealing about, but I think it is kind of simplistic. Like, there's no... Right. You're never shocked at the end. Like, there's never a twist like, oh, they were being discriminatory. No, from, okay, here's another planet where they land on, and this is happening.
Yeah, it's real cut and dry, right? Like you
Yeah,
can there are sometimes like twists, but it's still really clear.
yeah.
It's
Well, I
really
think
clear like this is evil, you know.
yeah. I think that the kind of the twists that are interesting in this one are near the end of the story. So there's this one guy who's like the leader of the 100, and somehow there's a revolt that happens in the city, and he flies away and he's trying to escape, and he comes to Emeraldas' ship. She has rescued this concentration camp of ugly people, and
Which is so funny to say.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So she is flying away in the Queen Emeraldas with all these people, and the jet
Right.
comes by with the leader, and he's like, "There's been a revolt. Let me on your ship." And one of the guys who's just been freed moments ago from the camp is like, "You dirty son of a," and he literally leaps off of the Emeraldas onto the jet and tumbles to his death with this guy. It's amazing. One of many, like, I find it was so emotionally intense,
Yeah.
throughout, but he's been liberated, and instead of, he's so filled with rage at seeing this guy that he jumps to his death along with him. It's amazing. A totally amazing moment. I think that's kind of where this is a lot, maybe not a lot different, but it's more, there's no resolve to that. In Galaxy Express, afterwards there would have been a conversation between Maytel and Tetsuro on the train as they went away to their next safe location. We're going to go to the next safe place and don't worry about, and yes, it's sad that these things happen and these things happen in the universe and the end, kind of. And here it's just this kind of, it's really, there are all these extreme moments where it's just like, this is what life is like in space. There are two scenes in this book in which Emeraldas gives a gun to a child.
Yes. Yeah, and that's why, and that's why I like it so much, is like you're saying, like, talk about it being like naive, like it's such a metaphor for our normal world's moral questions, which are so much more ambiguous, and not in such bright lines, and everything here is like such a bright line.
Yes.
And that's actually like, I do feel actually like there's a lot of cruelty in the world in 2016. And it's sometimes hard, it's always complicated though, and this is such like a raw, these are just raw depictions of like cruelty.
Yeah.
And addressing it. It's more than just like the fact that it's like a fantasy, like, oh, I wish I could, end a problem this way. It's not that I fantasize that things were so simple when I read these stories, but it's maybe that in this world of in the world in this book of such cruelty, the characters take such strong moral stances, which we're not really able to take this like strong, clear stance on things.
Sure.
Which I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm trying to say maybe it is like when you read it and you kind of fantasize that your problems were so simple, but it still takes a lot of guts what these characters go through. I don't envy characters who are thrown in concentration camps for being ugly, or killed for whatever simple reasons.
Yeah. There's another extreme sequence where Umino is now working in somebody's house, and this woman,
that was great.
She's super rich, and she insults Emeraldas, and Umino hits her with a broom handle, like strikes her.
Yeah.
And then her father is like, he kind of extricates him from the situation, says, she's very spoiled, whatever. But she actually ends up trying to murder him.
Yes.
Where he's working. Yeah. And as punishment for that, she is tied to a stake and shot by firing squad.
Like the dad basically has her killed.
By the dad, yeah. He's the one that's kind of running the show. Talk about, taking a moral stand. Everybody in this situation is like, okay, she insulted Emeraldas, so Umino takes a moral stand and whacks her.
And these are often about honor too.
Yes,
right? Like
right.
It's about like in the beginning they talk about like the law of space, like the law of the frontier.
Right.
Like, she, he it's like he hit his employer's daughter, and the guy doesn't fire him. It's like, oh, well, I understand you were emotional at this time, so just don't do that. And then she tries to murder him, and it's like, well, you're gonna die now.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, yeah. But he's taking his moral stand, and he has some issue about honor too. She attempted a murder, so there's a kind of maybe I don't know if the puzzle pieces of what we call honor in this world of Queen Emeraldas actually fit together properly. Right. But he's also taken his strong moral stand and said, well, you have to be executed. And then he falls down weeping, after she's dead, but he's had to do this thing because of the code.
He's also one of several characters in this book who are they're so similar, who are so impressed just by seeing this kid.
Yes.
It's this weird thing where like this kid who's had this hard life, Hiroshi, like he meets a few people in the course of his life. I mean, talk about, a fantasy, just because they can see how much guts he has, they admire him and they help him in his journey. And that's a really, it's an interesting like convention in a story, and then for it to happen like 2-3 times, it's pushing it in a weird way. But then for it to happen with this guy where he kills his own daughter, yet he still like pushes Hiroshi onward, and basically because the daughter is like this soft, spoiled girl, this soft and spoiled, and she doesn't have any guts or honor. She's just selfish. She thinks that she's as good as Emeraldas, and I think that's what maybe Hiroshi got mad about. Right. She was like, "Oh, I'm like," he's like, "No, you're not," and so the dad kills her, and then I think he like gives him the keys to a ship or something. Like he pushes him onward on his dream. That is weird. Yeah. I don't know. It's compelling. It's compelling. Like figuring out like what is this like code that is in this book, like. I don't know. And I wonder, like, what does Matsumoto see in the world? Like, how is the world like that for Matsumoto? Like, how does he see that? Like, okay, if you have a lot of guts, people will see that and push you, help you just for having guts.
I don't know. I think it's kind of, there's something idealized about it.
Yeah.
And there's also, something that shows up in both these series. Well, they're in the same universe, but sometimes you see these kind of frontier towns that it looks like there's a saloon. It looks like a cowboy western.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think there is a little bit of, it's basically a western in space kind of idea.
Totally. Yep. Yeah.
So maybe there's that kind of idealized, romanticized cowboy. Yeah. Morality in it. But I also think there's another element here, which we should admit is that, it was running in a shonen magazine and it was supposed to appeal to boys despite it being, Emeraldas kind of being the lead character, although she's kind of a spectral figure and sometimes comes and goes.
Right. Yeah,
I think
very much a boys' story.
Yeah, it's kind of got to work out for Umino, and he's got to come out on top. And in a sense, any 10-year-old boy reading it would need to feel like if he's brave, things will work out for him. People will see that in that reader, and they'll get through life in that way.
Coming up, what makes Queen Emeraldas a boys' comic, but in a more severe way? Matsumoto's repeated use of certain archetypes, how Emeraldas is similar to Matsumoto's other series and how it's different, and more. But first, I'd like to ask you to take our listener survey. There's a link from the homepage at deconstructingcomics.com. Help us get a better idea of what you want to hear.
I'm Batman.
And I'm Robin.
This is Tim.
And this is Paul.
To the Bat Poles! The The iTunes reviews are in on To the Bat Poles podcast, a terrific podcast, Rave's Got a Rugrat, that brings review, film analysis, and sociological impact to episode-by-episode musings without ever losing the feeling of two brothers with towels tied around their necks, running through the backyard. Unmissable.
Exquisite.
You've heard the reviews, now try it for yourself. New episodes on the first, third, and fifth Thursdays of the month on iTunes or Stitcher, or at tothebatpoles.libsyn.com.
Wild!
For nostalgia, analysis, and fun, it's
To the Bat Poles.
Yeah, I guess I feel like, you're totally right to bring up that it's like a shonen manga, and like Dragon Ball, like you can so clearly see, like in Dragon Ball or like Dragon Ball Z, it's like keep training and you'll keep, like, just as Goku trains and breaks new limits, so will the 12-year-old boy reading this study hard and make it into high school.
Yeah.
And then he'll study harder and get into college, and it's like, that's the very clear message of what that's about. Like, work hard at school and work hard at your club, whatever, and dedicate your life to that, and you will succeed, and you will rise up the ranks.
Yeah.
And in this book, it's like, it's a bit darker than that. I feel like this book is more focusing on, like, yeah, this world is shit, and it's gonna treat you hard.
Yeah.
And it's gonna treat you really, really hard, and you just gotta do the right thing.
Yeah. But I think kind of on the other side of that, Emeraldas is, I don't know, is she doing the right thing or not? And she didn't really work hard. She just kind of perseveres in her single-minded quest, whatever it is, and she'll kill anyone who gets in her way for her own survival.
Right.
So she's kind of on the opposite side of the work hard, study hard kind of.
It's not exactly. Yeah, you're right. It's not exactly like work hard, and that's weird too. The thing about the book is, like, okay, so like all these people like see Hiroshi and they look out for him, but at the dark edge of this story, is the thousands of people that you see dead or in concentration camps, who, I guess, obviously, like, you could say they didn't have as much guts as Hiroshi does. Like, they really push hard on that, like how tough he is and what a tough heart he has.
Yeah.
But also they just weren't as lucky, so when you read this book, no matter what kind of a 12-year-old you are, you obviously, you might be inspired in yourself to work hard, but it's also like awareness that many people, it just won't work out for them.
Yes.
Which I think is a kind of cool message to send to 12-year-olds. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so because the deaths we see on screen are usually for people who mostly deserve it. I mean,
yeah, the ones we see, they're bad pretty much.
Yeah, I think the captain, like, he's shot unarmed, but we know he tried to kill.
Oh yeah,
he's before.
Right, totally. A couple of bounties get shot, like, and it's just like, hey, Emeraldas, let's have a shootout, and then, like, one panel, it's done, they're dead.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll tell you something funny is sometimes I would turn the page and it was like the duel was over. It's like, oh, they didn't even show it. And then I flip back and I was like, oh yeah, there it was. It was one panel. She vaporized the guy, and it was just a flash of cloth ripping apart.
Which I love about this book. I love that, there's this kind of silly thing, like a Clint Eastwood in a Western, where she is basically explained or kind of shown as being like this amazing bounty hunter, super dangerous, and what I like is that, okay, I'll take that. And then when it comes to a firefight, like, the way to accomplish that is just like, she just shoots them. She'll shoot like 3 people in like one amazing panel.
Yeah.
And like they're dead. And it's like there's no time wasted on these firefights.
Yes.
It's like you don't waste time on firefights. They just show that she kills them. And I like that because the really exciting stuff in this book is like these like hard conversations that they have, either like her talking to Hiroshi or these bad people looking for her or whatever. Like, that's like what's really compelling about this book, even though it's so cool to have this like super cool hero character. Like, a gunfight isn't what's exciting about her. What's exciting is like these like ideas and themes that she is like throwing against Hiroshi and his, and all this, bad misfortune happening to him, and he's, fighting his way through tears to get through it. It's in this world of space fighting, but space fighting would be the least exciting thing to show.
Yeah. There's almost no. I'm trying to think of a single one that dragged out for more than like 3 panels. Usually, a guy shows up.
So. Yeah.
Usually, like I think the first guy that she kills in front of him, like this guy shows up and she says, "You're not the one I'm looking for," and then, Mars Gawalt, you found me. Let's do this, bounty hunter. And it's not on screen. There's just sound effects, Zwark, Bazat, and the next panel he's dead.
I mean, maybe that's the artist. I think that's cool because I think it's like what is he gonna do? Is he gonna spend are they gonna be like ducking behind cover? Like a video game.
Yeah.
Like maybe he just knew that wasn't. I think that's just not what he wanted to show.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool that maybe that would seem like an obvious thing that you should do, but he dispenses with that kind of thing, which I think is great.
Yeah. And also there's another kind of thing I love is like when they kill the engineer, Gears, on page 61, 62, they throw his body out the airlock, and at the bottom of the page there's a silent panel of Umino watching his body float away.
Oh yeah,
in space.
Great.
And it's kind of this. I got stuck on that panel. I was shocked by it because there's no gasp or anything from him. It's just like this,
totally.
This look of shock on his face, and this body out there in space. It's amazing.
You were talking about the pace. You were talking about the pacing earlier. I mean, that's an example where he just kind of splits this horizontal tier to just add a panel of like emotion.
Yeah.
And it's great that he's able to do that.
Yeah. So when you first saw his work and you thought, I want to redraw this, did you not know anything about the story at that stage? Was it based purely on the art, or?
When I first saw his work, I really didn't like it. Okay. Actually, I did not like the way he drew. I thought it looked so amateurish.
The potato heads, right?
The potato heads, and like her like weird spindly legs, or whatever, like Maytel's weird spindly legs. The kind of weird profiles of the characters, like to me at first glance, it looks bad. Right. Even though there's also this great technical drawing, whatever, but
I can imagine that. I love all the tech. Every planet, every society has the same looking technology. And I'm sure
all the ships are just like a bottle filled.
I can just imagine Matsumoto just passing the pages to his assistants and going, tech pages, draw them, get your rulers out, and
So I thought, at first I really did not like that, but I was so drawn to the passion in his work. I mean, I'm so impressed that for work that is superficially so strange, I can't objectively say bad, but to me, I was like, this is so ugly. But I just kept looking at it, and it's weird. And, there's so much passion in these stories that you can see, and I was really I was so taken in by this, like you said earlier, like these kind of archetypes that Matsumoto has.
Yes.
It's so strange. Like basically to me, okay, like it's laughable that this guy makes a bunch of books with the same characters. To me, it's like, like naive or something. Like, oh, look at that. In every book, there's like a tall, beautiful blonde woman and a fat little boy. And then, and then there's probably like 2 or 3 other like tall, skinny. And then he has a couple templates for like really cool guys. Yeah. And I guess I looked at that as like naive or something. But as I looked at it more, I just found it very compelling. And I felt like, I feel like Matsumoto has something inside of him that he wants to get out. This is like meaningful to him. These kind of archetypes, either mythic or visual archetypes that are very meaningful to him. And I wanted to dig in. I mean, I wanted to get into that. I love it.
Even Harlock and Emeraldas, like you look at them, and I can totally understand anybody coming into this stuff and seeing the potato heads, and I've heard people say it and being like,
Yeah.
what is this?
Right.
And being turned off by it, and even just seeing Emeraldas and Harlock and being
Right.
like, this is the same, they've got a scar on the same place.
Yes.
Yes. and eventually she starts wearing that same high collar, that military collar that he does.
Right.
You know, it's like,
Right.
it's, and there's in the second 999, there's another kid who turns up called Tochiro. Who's basically the same as Tetsuro, and they're kind of on screen at the same time, and you're like, what is going on? I kind of feel there's something, maybe it's tied into that naivety, but there's a total lack of cynicism. In that kind of approach,
Right.
like, he just draws what he wants to draw, or what he needs to draw, like you said. It's
Yeah.
it just comes out in one way. And even the kind of the format where every chapter, if you know how to look, every chapter ends with a little narrative, a
Right.
prose caption by Emeraldas, and every chapter begins with one like that as well. And that same format is in Galaxy Express, except it's an omniscient narrator. It's not Maytel or anyone.
Right.
But even that kind of that pacing of it, and the ships just going out there, the Sea of Stars. How many times would you hear that expression in these two series?
Yeah.
And he just keeps kind of coming back to the same well.
But it's and I think maybe we feel the same. Maybe that sounds like a bad thing, but he really sells it
Exactly.
well.
I can't get enough of it. I'm happy to read about the Sea of Stars 100 more times, and to see them go to the next planet where people are humans again and they all speak Japanese and the gravity's the same, etc., etc. And they have another issue where the rich people are oppressing the poor people, and then they, I keep doing it. I'm fine with it.
Yeah. I something about those opening exposition pages I really liked is, I felt in a way like Matsumoto, maybe I'm not going to say this right, but I feel like with the way that he starts every chapter and ends every chapter, saying again and again, like, I am Emeraldas, I travel through the Sea of Stars looking for something. And she just says it again and again. And actually, I liked that because I felt like he wasn't taking the audience or taking me for granted.
Yes.
I felt like he was giving you a fresh sell.
Yeah.
With equal amount of conviction.
Yeah.
Each time.
Yeah.
In a way that if he just did it once, I don't think I would have believed it.
Right.
But by doing it again and again, I feel like he doesn't take me for granted. Like I sometimes feel when I read comics and manga, like I'm lost by, as soon as I step in a few pages, like I have to be a fan of this series or this genre, which I don't really know a lot about. And by the way, when I started reading his work, I was totally unfamiliar with his work.
Right.
But I feel like he does a good job of like, that's the thing. He puts all this exposition in the beginning so that like, no matter who you are, when you pick up his story, you're like, okay, you're in for the ride. He loads you up right with each one, and that makes me feel good as someone who isn't like totally tracking everything about this artist or this series. I find that it's I don't get lost.
Yes. No, there's no way to really get lost, except at the very beginning and the very end. Well, except I do think Queen Emeraldas is, like I said, like I did it a disservice by assuming it was going to be similar to Galaxy Express in structure before I came into it, but it actually does have a kind of, there's more of a tension about like, when are these two characters going to meet again, and what are the circumstances going to be of it? Because I think she even rescues him from the sirens, and then she takes off again. It's not like they hang out.
That's right.
It's not like they hang out after that. She's like,
right.
okay.
Yeah, it's not exactly like Galaxy Express or maybe like, the typical like TV show formula
Mm.
where, they say like everything is set back to normal at the end of every
Yeah, that's
episode.
right. Yeah.
It's not that grounded. Like the series still at the end, but that's what I like is they will change, there will be some new thing. They're not together. There's something weird going on, but he still does pull you back into the story very clearly at
Yes.
the end,
Yes.
even though it's not quite as like safe as 3-9.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. But I do feel like there's like you said before, there is a structure to it, and there's a bit of build up, and it's gonna end after 4 volumes. We're gonna hit some sort of conclusion.
Yeah,
After
that's
the
that's that's actually a relief to me. I mean,
Yes.
I like
Yes.
that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
It's I feel very at the end of this, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who she's looking for. And I suspect that I don't know. I don't know who it is, but I'm so glad that at the next volume it's over.
Yeah. And I do
Uh,
like the presentation that Kodansha has done with it. I like that it's a hardcover for
yeah,
this
it's
guy
cool.
who's really unknown. Maybe some people have seen the Daft Punk movie, maybe.
Yeah.
But I love that, and I kind of loved like some of the special effects, like the sound effects. The English translations are a bit muddy looking, and I thought that was great. It just seemed to melt into the pages the way I don't know if they intended to do it, but it looked right.
Yeah, there's some really it's really fun the production inside like there's like varying production quality within the reprints of the manga,
Yeah.
like and just the way his pages are so often like floating into the sea of like this like toxic planet atmosphere, a desert or space, and like a lot of like just like tons of mark making,
Yes.
it's not just like the space full of stars, but like this sky on this planet that's just like he draws the wind by drawing like a gazillion dotted lines over the page.
Yeah.
It's this like weird, and then some of the pages are watercolor, which I thought was like really cool.
Mm.
I bet that was a really weird thing to do at the time. Like he just watercolored things in,
Mm.
and then there are even some stories in here they said like were lost for years. They had
Yeah.
only been printed once, and you can totally see how the quality of those pages is worse. But that's exciting. It's cool to read that. I don't need to be shown as most readers don't need the art to be cleaned up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I like it kind of helps to put it in a real world temporal context as well. Like this is stuff that was done in the 70s.
Yeah.
And that might, I don't know, if, for people who have resistance to it, maybe would help bring them in. I don't know, I can't recommend it enough. Like to me, seeing the potato heads, especially, I love the panels where you have the tech and the people
Yeah.
in the same panel because they should be incongruous, but there's something that they just kind of, I don't know if they melt together or they somehow there's some kind of vibe that comes off the page and into my body that's like
Yeah,
it looks
I
so
feel like
good.
Yeah, I feel like he draws this way out of conviction,
Yes.
Like I think maybe that's another thing is about, coming to like his work is like you see so much of it and it's not like he's not changing the way he draws, and really it actually is quite expressive. And
Yeah.
I guess like
Yeah.
initially thinking it looked weird, and then it took me a while to see like, what do you want? It's as deliberate as you want. He has this like goofy, I don't know how to like, I don't know what language to make it sound nicer. Can I say it's like an expressionistic way
Sure.
of drawing these figures, but it's with as much conviction as he puts into these detailed drawings of grids and gears and
I mean,
dials.
you totally understand the emotional states of the characters.
Yeah,
Even though
yeah,
they look
yeah.
like, the men look like potato heads or whatever. There's never any. It's right. It comes right off the
Yeah.
page. I think. Yeah. I also think Kodansha was brave to publish anything older because nothing older sells in the manga industry. I know this. And in the interest of full disclosure, as soon as I heard them announce this, I emailed them the next day and said, "Can I be the translator on this book?" And I was one day late. They'd given the job to somebody else the day before.
Mr. Zach Davidson,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah,
He's a great guy. He's worked on great projects.
Yeah,
Book is
for
well
sure.
done.
But it's amazing that they've put this thing out. That at all. And initially I was like, well, why would they do this and not Galaxy Express or something? Well, it's just contained. It's a bit more, it's manageable.
It's contained. Yeah, it's only So wait, I was gonna ask you. So do you have any idea when the next volume will come out? I never buy like new manga. Like I was very excited to buy this, but I'm not used to it. So like, is it like a sure thing that they'll publish the second one?
I hope it's a sure thing.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything, and it took a long time from the time they announced this to it coming out. Was about a year maybe. So I don't know. It could be another 6 months. I guess for something that's 400 pages. That's my guess.
Man, I do wonder why they would choose it. Like you said, why would they choose this one? It's self-contained.
Yeah.
And
but
and I really do think it's good. Yeah,
for sure.
It's unlike other work, It's good and it's weird.
Yeah.
It's strong. It's strong, compelling work, and it's in 2 volumes. And I think maybe there's something nice about it, like that it exists within this larger universe.
Yeah.
So for fans of that giant TV show, they have an access point to what this is, and that's exciting for them. But for someone like me, who I haven't seen that whole TV show, and like in my case, I just came upon this work. But for other people who just come upon it, like it is like reasonable. Like they establish who the characters are in this story. Yeah. Like you're not getting into something huge.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Man, I didn't know. So older manga doesn't sell that well.
No, it's a real gamble. It's a real risk. Even the Tezuka stuff doesn't really sell well. I mean, if you look at like DMP had to do a Kickstarter for Tezuka stuff.
Right.
All of Phoenix is out of print. Like, this stuff is not. It's not hot. The kids.
You mean like when I go to like Barnes and Noble and I see that giant long shelf of manga and a lot of stuff. That stuff like sells better than old stuff?
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah. It's well, I think the market is really driven by younger audiences who want to get the latest thing.
I understand that.
Yeah, I totally do too, but it means whenever they do something older, they're taking it's a real gamble for the outfit. So I'm very glad that Kodansha did in this case, and my initial concerns that it was going to be out of, not followable because it was a Galaxy Express spin-off as I perceived it were not true. It's totally standalone. I think that Galaxy Express is mentioned once and Harlock is mentioned once, and that's it.
Is that? I didn't even catch the Galaxy Express one.
In there, there's some planet where they say it's a stop on the Galaxy Express or something.
Yeah, I was kind of concerned when you asked me to talk about this. I was kind of wondering, like, am I in a position? I feel like because I made this zine, based on this book, that I've got to buy it.
Yeah.
Number one, and number two, I guess I felt like, do I actually recommend this to people? Like, I don't even know how, because I came at this story, this artist, kind of from the outside. And I think it's really cool and compelling. I want to say, like, I feel like I'm a weird person to recommend it, or because like I feel like I don't like know tons of manga, except just to say, like, in my personal experience, like, the thing is I can't compare it to a lot is my weakness, I feel.
Yeah.
But I feel like in my experience, like, it really is it's a really cool reading experience, especially if you kind of are outside of this scene. Like, I feel like he does with all the exposition that he and repeated exposition, and like the really strong themes. I mean, like, stronger thematic statements than anything. He goes at you hard.
Yeah.
with what he feels about the world, and because of that, I think it's actually like, it's cool to read. It's not just like reading sci-fi and like look at the pretty lights and the cool effects.
Yeah.
Like imagine this world. It's not at all like that. It's like, whoa, he just like, he comes at you right in the beginning and he's like, yeah, in space, in space, people try to kill you. And if you have mercy on your opponent, you'll lose, because they won't, and they'll kill you. And your number one mission as a kid, you just got to survive. People are going to try to kill you. And you can't help but read that and I feel like my reaction is like to react to that and be like, well, okay, like that doesn't apply to my life.
Right.
But because he keeps going at it, you're like, well, how does it apply to my life? I mean, how does it apply in this world? I don't know. Am I a sheltered weakling like his princess character?
Right. It certainly does build that world, for sure. Him coming back to it again and again. It makes a kind of solid universe that he's created there.
Yeah.
Okay. Any last words you think we should say about this amazing book? I think it is the only Matsumoto manga in English. So.
Yeah, I'll say for what it's worth. I mean, yeah, if you want to, I really recommend it. I guess I do. Even though I qualified my recommendation as like not knowing what to compare to, I really feel like it's a pretty extraordinary book. It's really well done, and yeah, it feels like a good thing to have. It's pretty intense. I feel like since I write and draw comics too, and I feel like it's really inspiring and really pushes me as someone who writes stories in a way that most stories don't have that effect on me. But this really does, because he speaks so strongly.
Queen Emeraldas Volume 1 is published by Kodansha. What have you learned from our shows Deconstructing Comics, Critiquing Comics, and To the Bat Polls? A new way of thinking about something you've enjoyed for years? A great comic you'd never have found otherwise? New ideas for how to make your comic? If you value the content on our podcasts, help us keep going with a monthly donation via Patreon at patreon.com/deconcomics. If you pledge at least $3 a month, you'll be able to access additional content on Patreon, and we'll include an ad for your comic in the show once a month. If you'd rather send a one-time donation via PayPal, use the email address donate@deconstructingcomics.com. We appreciate your support in keeping the show going. Deconstructing Comics is on Patreon, Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, and YouTube. All our social media links can be found on the right sidebar at deconstructingcomics.com. Also, please give us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. If you're interested in sponsoring this podcast or sending some feedback, write to mail@deconstructingcomics.com. And once again, don't forget to take our survey at deconstructingcomics.com. Our theme is from bensound.com. This Thursday on To the Bat Polls, a script rewrite makes a confusing mess of The Impractical Joker and the Joker's Provokers. What good points can we salvage from this frustrating arc? Is there any way to find out what the original script looked like? Plus your mail and more Bat trivia. Look up To the Bat Polls wherever you find your podcasts or at tothebatpolls.libsyn.com. On July 27th, we lost Richard Thompson, creator of the comic strip Cul-de-sac. He retired back in 2012 as his health worsened, and at the time, Tom Spurgeon and I did an episode looking through the short but accomplished run of the strip, and we'll be representing our send-off here next week. It's Deconstructing Comics 331 from September 17, 2012. Watch out for the uh-oh, baby. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.